It's TIS today. We are talking in stations for EVE Online on September 21st, 2020. That's a Monday. I am Matterall here with Maddoxar.
Well, hello. How's it going?
Really good. And Gregorin.
Hi.
Okay, let's jump in. EVE War hits day 77. Today.
Yes. Yeah. Looks like the goons changed time zones to U.S. Kind of. I guess the U.S. is the new AU time zone.
What's that mean to change time zones?
Well, their structures and everything's been. They moved their time zone or actually their window of vulnerability to the U.S. time zone, which is, if you look now, what time is it? About just past midnight UTC. So we're right in the middle of the US time zone. So currently all the structures and timers have been moved to this time zone that we're in currently.
Any ideas why they would do that?
They feel they have an advantage in this time zone. They've always felt they had the strongest US time zone force of any of the alliances. So I'm assuming that's why they did this, not to time zone tank. The other coalitions, they're really strong in EU. So this should help the Imperium to have a slight advantage in some future engagements.
Would you say it's a sign of confidence?
I would say it's a sign of not giving up, right? So they're definitely in this. So um, I don't know, confidence possibly, yeah.
Well, I say that because if they're strongest in this time zone, they're not trying to hide the timers. They're trying to put the timers to when they're strongest. Normally, you hide the timers in a time zone where everybody is weakest. So you count on them not being able to rally the troops on their weak time zone enough to become a threat. But when you feel confident, you time it to when you're most present. So I would think that if you're going to time it to U.S. time zone, that is an advantage only because that's when you're at your full strength and you believe in your full strength more so than you believe on your enemy's weak spots. In addition to that, Vertigo here in chat says there's better FCs in USTZ for the Imperium. Go ahead, Gregorin.
I don't know if it's really a change of time zone since they've always had a lot of their structures set in U.S. time zone. It's just that initially one Goon Corp, which is Chinese, made their personal project to hold Aquarius, so they did have a lot of their corp stuff set in the Chinese time zone. It's just that, well, Goon Swarm as a whole is largest in the U.S. time zone, and while the initiative is predominantly European, so
Oh, interesting point.
and even though they have a decently large Chinese time zone in PLA, which is the Chinese Goon Corp, and along with a few Chinese allies, if they set their stuff to Chinese time and Fraternity decide to commit further, they wouldn't be able to defend in that time zone because Fraternity is much larger.
Right. There actually was, as a side note, we'll get to this another time, but there was an SOTA, State of the Alliance, coming out of Fraternity that we're having translated before we can read it to understand it. So when we have that, we'll tell you what was in it. Maddox, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, even though they did move everything to the U.S. time zone, as far as their timers go, for EU, they're not really alarm clocking. They're just probably going to have to stay up later, right, than they normally would. So how effective this is going to be is yet to be seen.
Okay.
And the point about FCs, that definitely is important. Like, I don't actually think I know of any FCs available for any coalition in the Australian time zone besides one or two guys from Fraternity and Siege Green, but they definitely Goonswarm definitely has a few U.S. time zone FCs like Asher, who was half an hour ago fighting against Pan Famine Legacy.
Yeah, and Legacy, they have Vily and PGL are in the U.S. time zone as well, so they shouldn't have any problems at all fielding FCs in this time zone.
They seem to want to fight Pro God Legend, right? There's a lot of dialogue aimed in his direction. They capitalize on his mistakes whenever he makes one. They publicize that really well. They seem to want to fight him. It seems like to me.
Well, he's very popular, right? And he's also really never been shy about his disdain for the goons for a long time now. So it's probably why. Other than that, I have no idea. It's just it's a little bit of spin. You get that from both sides. So,
well, I wonder if there's something about him that makes him more vulnerable than European FCs from Northern Coalition or Pandemic Legion or even Vily. Like, is he more triggerable? Can they bait him into something more so than others? Because he's more impulsive. He's more of a maverick FC. He does things kind of his way. And he likes to go for the long balls, I guess.
Well, I mean, if he takes a risk, he knows he's taking a risk, right? And he's not going to do it because someone called him a name. He's got some pretty thick skin, and he's pretty chill about the game too, right? So he doesn't let a lot of stuff get to him. I flew into him a lot. Now in fleets, he'll definitely rage on some folks, but after the fleet and everything else, it's all chill and everything. So I don't think that's going to be a factor there.
Yeah, we're not saying that Pro God was baited, but we wonder if they want to or they prefer to fight Pro God Legends U.S. time zone since they're stronger.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure they're trying to bait a fight out. They'd probably love for him to slip up, but he's a fairly competent FC, and I don't think probably not going to happen, right? His thing is just not getting there on time for some reason, right?
Yeah.
Or as long as there's no wormholes involved, he should be fine.
Well, that goes for everybody. Elo gets trapped in wormholes too, like a lot of FCs. They get their fleets chopped off halfway through the. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, just some speculation there of some of the advantages that the Imperium would have in the U.S. time zone. One, they're bigger. Two, they might prefer to fight against Pro God Legend. But a good point that Gagarin made was that maybe some of the Aquarius stuff was actually timed to Chinese time zone or Australian time zone because the people that occupied it for the Imperium were actually from that time zone. So anyway, doesn't matter. The fact is, goons have changed time zones to USTZ. Maybe they've always had the majority of their stuff in USTZ, but there is some movement for the stuff that wasn't in USTZ. Okay, let's move on. Reasons for the war were discussed over on, well, they've been discussed in many places, but lately Reddit was the latest place you could see there was, let's actually take you there now to this combination of Vily and Arendis talking to each other in the occasion of this article, again, written by Polygon, and it was teased out here on Reddit by Asher from the Imperium. And he says, Vily says he was fired in that Polygon article, but he wasn't fired, and we have some evidence that he wasn't fired. And so they present that. And then later on, there is another thread. I think this is it an additional one? Could be an additional one. But yeah, it's the same thread. So Vily actually pops in there and says, yeah, I didn't say that I was fired and that's why I was waging war. That was just the way that the author decided to write it. But he goes on to explain his reasons for attacking or leading his coalition to attack the Imperium. And there's a nice little exchange here between him and Arendis. But essentially, Vily goes on to say that it was the chief diplomat at the time, Scion Kumimoto, that basically said you have to prove yourself again before you can get back into the positions that you were before you left, because he took a time out in real life to do some military exercises. And that is something that takes you away for months, possibly. So he was away for a while. He came back. They said, yeah, you can't start where you ended. You have to prove yourself to get back up. He took that as a slight, as they were basically saying, we don't appreciate what you put in, that you haven't really earned it. And so I think Vily also mentioned that Mr. V was able to stay in the places where he was, and he didn't have to prove himself again, and he had been gone longer. So I think he felt like this was a slight. He wasn't given equal treatment, and so he took off. But he basically says it was mostly Scion's attitude towards him that, and somewhat of Matani's attitude, the leadership of the Imperium at the time, that really pissed him off. So he took off and said, yeah, he didn't get fired, but he read the signals that he wasn't appreciated, and he took off. So that's what happens there. And he says, as far as the terms that are used in the article about Vily saying that the Imperium needs to be exterminated, which is extermination is what you do to insects. So Goon Swarm is represented by bees, so it's a play on exterminating Goon Swarm, the bees. And he says that kind of language is used because it's us or them, which makes this war a war of extermination. You either exterminate the dinosaurs or you exterminate the bees. And so that's where that comes from. The Imperium, he also goes on to say later on that, as they go back and forth quite a bit, Arendis is very verbose. He writes a lot, so this will take you a good while to read. But Vily basically says that the reason, maybe it's right here, the reason that the Imperium basically has to be reduced or their influence has to be taken away is because they're too big and they're toxic as far as what they represent in the game, that they are too big and they freeze the game up too much. And so everybody has to group up to even match them. And we've seen that in some of the numbers where everybody's really come out. I know there's theoretical numbers, and I'm going to put those aside for now because I don't really buy any of those theoretical numbers. But when we have seen these two groups size themselves up against each other, they're pretty much equal. I would say the Anaconda, as we're calling them now, they were Pappy, and we call them now Anaconda Coalition because they're going to constrict Delve over time, is bigger. How much bigger is hard to say, but when they've matched up, when everybody's kind of piled in, it's pretty much been, I would say, 300 to 500 pilot difference, maybe. That doesn't mean they're tie, but they're not. It's not 3-1, certainly. I wouldn't even say it's 2-1. It might be on paper, but I think when they all pile in, it's pretty close to even, but definitely the Anaconda Super Coalition has the advantage. If they're all there, it might totally change that, but lately we've seen them kind of look similar. What do you guys got on this?
Well, I believe this harkens back to the days of Jade Constantine, and where they go on the forums and kind of make their reasons for going to war. It kind of reminds me of that, which I think is pretty cool.
You have any thoughts, Gregorin?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that all of them are exaggerating their feelings to make a message to their own followers, to motivate their own followers to fight.
Okay.
But I'm pretty I wouldn't be surprised if there was some sort of issue that Vily interpreted as a slight, whether it was intentional or not. And now everyone's exaggerating it to motivate their own followers to fight this war.
Right. The main reason that the coalition is invading of multiple coalitions is to take the Imperium off the board of influence as far as nullsec goes, to reduce their influence to the point where they no longer sway the tides of the game. And I think that's how they sold the war when they began on July 4th. And they continue to say that the Imperium is too big. And if it does take, like, if we're looking at more or less equal teams, which we kind of are when we see them colliding, then you have to think about that. It takes everybody else to equal the Imperium. That's a big group. That's a very big group. I'm not saying their reasons are correct, but there's some truth to what they're talking about. As far as the Imperium being someone that is malignant, not benign, is up for discussion, right? Because I think Asher points out that they're the good guys, that they're actually providing entertainment and they're keeping their players safe from terrible things. So, yeah. Oh, okay. We have a guest. Well, let's hear it from Vily himself. Here he is. I'll bring him in. How you doing, Vily? Let me know if you're able to hear. I didn't realize you were on TIS Discord.
Good evening.
How you doing? We're just talking about your motivations and your exchange here with Horrendous on Reddit. You have any additional comments?
Particularly, I mean, I think the conversation with Horrendous there was just meant to be as positive as it can be between two people who work together historically. Horrendous and many of the people in the Imperium and in the Illuminati are good people with good intentions. We're just trying to protect their dudes. No different than I'm trying to do, no different than anyone.
But are you really trying to protect your dudes? Because you're attacking them. They're not attacking you.
I mean, I think it's a safe bet to say that even if someone's not attacking you right now, it doesn't mean they won't be attacking you later, right? Preemptive war is sometimes just as effective as defensive war.
But preemptive strikes depend on information that's actionable, which you haven't presented at all. You haven't shown that they would attack you. You're just saying there's the possibility that they would.
Well, that's not necessarily true. The preemptive strikes, require actionable intel. That's a definition that you have placed on what a preemptive strike justifies or doesn't justify. The fact that we can make the case that as the smallest of the three coalitions, when the decision was made, meant that sooner or later, one of the other two, or both, would come looking at us. Obviously, if we had been able to get the Imperium support to attack PanFan, then that's probably where we would have been. But when we were unable to do that, it created a situation where our only opportunity was to sit there and kind of die slowly, or to be engaged in activity. And we had to make a decision, and we made one.
So were there any signs that the Imperium would turn on you, or any indications in the past, any behaviors?
Yes.
Can you name any of those? Or are they OPSEC?
Oh, I don't think it's hyper relevant to the conversation. I prefer not to leak private conversations unless there's an absolute desire to do so. Certainly, there's been situations and diplomatic discussions at different times where we've come all but inches away from shooting each other, and by no means is our relationship ever going to be truly, or would it have ever truly been together. I don't know what quite the word is. We're two independent organizations with two independent goals, different ideas, different cultures. No matter how long you span the timeline, somewhere along that time, the coalitions will always come in conflict. And when you're the much smaller guy, you can wait until the bigger guy chooses, or you can find an opportunity to be the aggressor and do it on your timeline.
Couldn't you have stayed part of the, as it was called, the Super Coalition Imperial Legacy that was built for 2018, which I think worked really well in your favor, also in Imperium's favor? That was a coalition that looked like it was unbeatable. Wouldn't it have been safer just to stay aligned?
Absolutely. It's a much safer position to be in, but it's not necessarily a healthier position for Test Alliance, Legacy Alliance, or the game as a whole. When you have Imperium combined with any other group or any of the other coalitions, there's no challenging that, right? Like, if you look at the galaxy right now, you have a galaxy that is fighting together, unified for the most part, against the Imperium. And while we outnumber them, we don't outnumber them by much. And that's taken a massive amount of effort and organization, and it's not been easy by any means. And to think that without any of those groups that we would not have enough is to me a clear sign of just how unengageable the Imperium was just a few months ago.
Yeah, but that's a different reason than fearing that they're going to attack you, and so it's a fight for survival, because that's a reason that's different.
It's a multivariable situation. It's not just that they could attack us, or just that the certain parts of their style are not good for the game, or just that the personal conflicts. There's a host of many things that all fall into that decision.
All right. Well, I mean, when you say there's multiple reasons, it seems like they become interchangeable depending on the facts not supporting one, and so then you switch to another, and that's what it kind of looks like. But I want to bring you back to the war in Fountain. Who initiated that war, and what was that war about?
Which war in Fountain? Are we talking about 2013?
Yeah, 2013.
Oh, jeez.
Now, you were on the Imperium side at that point, but what happened between the Imperium and Test? Because they were allied at that point too.
They were, like, the situation is actually pretty close to similar. I believe it was Test that more or less engaged or began that war. I don't think it was as clear cut as this one, but over time, Test had kind of grown up and thought they were ready to take on their bigger dad, and they took their shot, and obviously they lost in the course of the war. And it was a long, well-fought war. Yeah, there's absolutely a ton of them.
I mean, you're also taking a shot with allies at the Imperium. At that time, Imperium stated they wanted to come into Test territory, which was Fountain of all places, and take some moons, because moons made money. This was on the record. Matani have said it many times. So they came basically to take your space. There was also an issue of cultural mismatch, as the Imperium was trying to clean its act up and eliminate racism and all this garbage from their comms, and Test was more reluctant to do that under a different leadership.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, Test had their kind of own mini cultural revolution a year or two later, as kind of they exited the desert with Brave. I'm not sure. Yeah. By the time I joined Test, that was already a thing that the standard cultural norms had kind of become more prevalent in the core alliance.
Yeah,
much like they had in Goonswarm or anywhere else.
Well, just looking back on it, if we look at Fountain War, that didn't end well for Test. Test actually was taken off their territory, knocked into obscurity, really. I think you ended up in Fountain War. In Faction War after that, and then slowly recuperated in Scalding Pass. Of course, you weren't part of Test. You found Test in Scalding Pass, a very diminished group, right? That when you started there?
Yeah. So my understanding of the history, and I'm not by any means the expert on it, it's between 2013 and 2015, late 2015 when I joined, I believe. Test basically was part of the hero code. Like, they got crushed in Fountain. They went into Losec for a while. They did faction warfare. They became part of Hero Coalition, and they were the little brother of Brave. And then as PL slowly tore Brave apart limb from limb, um, Test absorbed a non-zero component of their membership, and with that force, they moved into Scalding Pass / Wiki Creek, much more Wiki Creek than Scalding Pass, and then I joined them in there, and then as we kind of grew together, we were in a situation where we were able to build up some steady growth, start taking some moves, start achieving some goals, and bit by bit, and then we moved into phase 1 of World War B1.
Right. And so you guys actually moved up north to take on the Imperium at the time. They were no longer the CFC. And again, you teamed up with many of the groups that you are teaming up with now. You were successful that time at, again, I don't want to attribute Fountain to you because you weren't in Test at the time, but you were part of Test during the first, we'll call it World War B. You did displace the Imperium. And then you yourself were displaced by NCPL and those groups, and you, along with CO2, had to retreat south and start your own empire, so to speak, your own legacy coalition.
Indeed.
Right. And I believe PGL wanted to follow the Imperium south when they first went to Delve, and nobody else thought it necessary.
It wasn't just that he wanted to; he did. Right? He took Test from Vale, and we went down and deployed to Delve, and we were fighting with, I believe it was Lumpy and Tickle at the time, against the Imperium in Delve.
Yeah.
Our forces were just not anywhere near large enough at the time. Test was the kind of alliance that could form 10 Titans at best at that point in our existence. And we couldn't deploy those Titans even if we had them. So obviously, as soon as the Imperium finally got themselves sorted out in terms of caps and super caps down there, they slowly started building up their wall, and nobody else wanted to come shoot them. So they were left to their own devices there, and then the next time we would meet them would be on the field of battle in 2017.
Right. Huge mistake on the North's part. They were up there helicoptering around with the, what were they called? New World Order, where nobody could put down a keep star if they didn't give it permission. And that was a meme, but there was a little bit of truth behind it. And they were just, essentially, they were goofing around while the Imperium came down to Delve and started building what they have now, which is a huge empire in Delve.
Yeah, but then the North kind of, or PanFam, then went and started attacking CO2 and Test. So
in a kind of beautiful irony, the much as CO2 was one of the main perpetrators of causing World War B1, CO2 was also the cause of getting us evicted from Tribute and Vale. Their tendency towards large level feeds certainly brings in all kinds of interested sharks, I guess you could say.
Yeah, you made that point. Yeah. It was very interesting. The idea that CO2 is feeding a lot of dreads just made everybody say, I want to get in on that. And that created a vacuum calling all these big groups to come into that area. And that momentum was important.
Well, it wasn't just the dreads and the Macarials, it was the Titans as well, right? That's there's nothing quite like Titan feeds to get people interested in deployment. So, especially even more so 3 to 5 years ago when Titans were even more rare than they are now, right?
Yeah.
The scale of Titan rarity has only been going down. So we talk about 2 to 3 Titan losses as a feed. It's this is post BTEC R, but even still, Titans still were significantly more rare back then than they are now.
Right. That's a good point. So what's going on today for the, we're going to call them Anaconda, I suppose, Coalition, the Super Coalition? What have you guys been doing today?
So today, the Pappy Coalition, or the Anaconda Coalition, as TOS has decided they're going to call us.
It's too much fun.
Thanks, Elise.
Listen, you guys can call us whatever you like. It's not going to change much. But today has mostly been another day focused on moving. We've been moving for the last 2 to 3 days. We have the supply line open from Catch into Aquarius, and we are taking advantage of that. And we've been moving carrier caches, fax caches, dread caches, personal dreads, personal subs, every little bit of war material we can from Catch into Aquarius so that we're in a position to properly fight this war with the tools we need to.
Yeah.
We've, finished off the majority of Query's iHubs. There is This morning there was only 2 Aquarius iHubs remaining in Delve that didn't. Let me clarify. When I say Aquarius, I mean real Aquarius, not including fake Aquarius. There was only 2 hostile iHubs remaining in Aquarius, and we killed those 2 today. One of them was replaced by goons, is my understanding. So there's now 1 hostile iHub left in the entirety of Aquarius. And, we've just been slowly starting to chew through some structures and continuing to focus on moving.
So right now you've captured, and we talked about this on Sunday, the Rubicon has been crossed. You guys made a huge announcement over the weekend about that. You've been moving since then. One of your Titans was intercepted and taken out in short order, actually, by a dread bomb that you guys retaliated against. But that was really the only casualty so far. How far along are you on this move up? How long does it take to move this many people into position?
Multiple days. 48 to 96 hours is kind of our expectation for when we will be in the 90 to 95% combat effectiveness zone. We've moved. I think we probably moved about 1,000 capitals on Saturday during the like mini little coalition meeting, and then another 100 or 150 super capitals. And then Sunday, obviously, you can reduce that by about 2/3, so probably a couple hundred capitals and 20 or 50 supers. And then today you reduce that by another half or a third, so another 100 capitals. Although actually we've moved definitely more than 100 capitals today, so a couple hundred capitals today, but not many supers. Especially after the dread bomb, there's a bit more reluctance to move supers once the danger is actually reminded to people how careful they should actually be when undertaking those kind of moves.
Before we get there, can you tell us the difference between real Aquarius and fake Aquarius?
So if you pop open a map of Aquarius on your stream
now
for the viewers.
Okay, assume it's up. I'll get there.
Yeah, some of it is exclaved by Delve.
So universe, pick up Aquarius and you just look at the standard map. There's about 12 systems on the left that you cannot access from the rest of Aquarius except going through Delve. They are all still showing as Condi-owned iHubs for your viewers. And those systems, geographically, if you go to the universe kind of view,
Okay.
it's the little green button there at the top. The little green planet-looking button, the top selection bar.
Yeah, it takes a second for you to see it, but yeah. This area
the
here.
way those systems are spread throughout the map is you'll notice that they are all basically in the middle of Delve, and they're actually kind of a key connection point between North Delve and South Delve to a degree. So there's everybody generally calls it fake Aquarius because it's by and large accepted to be more Delve than it is Aquarius. And geographically, all of its jump ranges are more relevant to Delve discussion than they are to Aquarius discussion.
Right. I can imagine that when you're in this area here, your jump range is terrific for north or south of Delve.
Correct. Nobody treats fake Aquarius as if it's anything other than Delve. And I imagine the Imperium will treat it the exact same.
So when you say that you've conquered all the iHubs but 2 or 1, you're talking about this area here, this group of Aquarian systems.
Correct.
Okay. And well, I guess you can't tell us your battle plans, but at some point we assume you'll use Aquarius to get into the middle of Delve there.
Correct. So we can come at Delve from the northern spine of Aquarius, or we can come at Delve through the AQT SVM gate, or we can come at Delve /period basis from the southern point of Aquarius via jump ranges. We have, basically north, middle, or south kind of options.
Mm-hmm.
If you, apply that to the rough Anaconda plan, as you guys have been laughably saying, and smothering of Delve, it might be pretty easy to decipher that we're probably going to continue to try and cut off lifelines bit by bit.
Right. Will there be any, we'll call it constriction over a period basis here? Is there any
Well, I
point to
mean
it?
that seems like a logical conclusion one might come to, I guess.
Yeah, denial of income, I suppose, is part of your battle plans, and that's probably where there's some income being made.
Well, I mean, you can open up the ADM map of period basis right now and draw a pretty reasonable conclusion about the amount of income generation that is going on in period basis.
Oh, really? Let's take a look.
So would this constriction be more of like income based, or the hope that some of the players, the fair weather types, would start not logging on or going elsewhere for content and farming?
I mean, it's both, right? Part of the constriction is you're cutting off mobility, you're cutting off jump ranges, you're cutting off access to resources, access to income, and you're just continuing to deny your opponent the freedom of movement more and more and more, as much as you can.
I was about to say this can't be right because it's NPC kills and it's all zeros.
That is correct.
That's crazy. Okay, so here's some. This is 24 hours. Yeah, a lot of these are zeroed out. There's a few in here. The biggest one, CW9, has like 12,000 NPCs destroyed. But other than that, this period basis looks pretty shut down. Well, there's a 4,000, 4,000. Well, here's a 24,000. That's pretty good. Yeah, that's the hotspot. One tack L.
Yeah.
And
So
one tack
every
N.
once in a while, a carrier, the cloaky camper will log off, and the carrier will get to go to business. But for the
Yeah.
most part, we've probably reduced the activity in period basis by 80 to 90%, if not more. And bit by bit, it will pay dividends later. Obviously, there's some ADM fleets that continue to go down into the area, so
Yeah.
certainly, we're doing our best to make it difficult to hold the area, and when the time is right, we'll do our best to cut off its lifelines and once again go for the kill on region number 3.
But that isn't Goon Swarm's ratting territory. It is part of the Imperium's ratting territory. Who's usually in this area?
So period basis was primarily routed in by Ranger Regiment and a mix of Goon Swarm, and I believe it was Lawn or Bastion. I can't remember the third group that had a small presence here. But it was primarily Ranger Regiment and Goon Swarm.
Yeah. Come to think of it, this is a 24-hour cycle that we're looking at. So the 24,000 or the 12,000 NPCs that were destroyed, that could be happening in a different time zone, like a Australian time zone or something too, right?
Yeah, Ranger Regiment and Dracarys are predominantly Chinese, so
Dracarys was the other alliance I was thinking of. Yes, good, thank you.
Wow, that looks like pretty good constriction. Not gonna lie.
Right. I mean, the goal, as everyone knows, in the end is delve, right? So, bit by bit, cutting off the outer limbs is a process, and it will take time. And bit by bit, we will work towards it. But by no means is the goal to kill period basis. The goal is to kill delve, and period basis is just one step towards that goal. And to be honest, with the level of resource reduction from period basis, it's entirely possible we may just cut a few lines and skip it altogether. It'll entirely depend on how the factors on the ground look, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I'm looking at Delve now. It definitely has more activity, but a lot of small numbers here compared to the usual. Some less than 1,000 per system.
There's still a significant amount of ratting and mining activity in Delve, but we'll get to that bit by bit.
Right. They're still, yeah, you're still not really, are you in that, are you attacking Delve yet, or are you just taking on Quarius mostly?
For the most part, if I had to describe what we're doing right now, it is solidifying our gains in Quarius more than anything. Last night we spent our time defending the 49U iHub. This afternoon we continue to focus on moving and clearing out random things. It's just the standard you take a position, you hold the position, solidify your position, you move on. And we're definitely in the phase of solidifying our position in Quarius so that we're ready to go to the next beachhead, the next stage, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, you picked up some extra people. It looks like Watchmen picked up 300 from this group here, Catastrophic Experiment. Great logo, by the way. I'm a big logo fan. Did these guys, Catastrophic Experiment, as an alliance, try to get into Legacy and merge into a corp to move over, or?
I'm not actually tracking that, but my guess would be maybe. I honestly don't know, so I'm not going to speak on it. All I know is that she is a very capable alliance leader with the Watchmen, and they have a great team over there. And for a small AU time zone alliance, they've done some incredible things. And to see them picking up members is not surprising. They've got tons of good space. They've got some really good leadership, and they've got all kinds of content around them, both at home and deployed. So to me, it seems obvious that good corps would want to join them.
I love their name, the Watchmen. What a great name!
Good name, good logo, good leaders.
Yeah, she is an Australian player.
It's an Australian time zone alliance. I'm not going to dox anyone and say where they live unless it's public.
That's what I meant, though. It's an Australian. Okay, so, yeah. All right, cool. Thanks. Well, let's. Thank you very much, Vily. Let's talk about Shadow Cartel Mannix. What did you hear about them?
Well, just from the kill board, it looks like they Titan got bumped off or floated off a Fortizar, and then Shadow
CVA
Cartel.
Titan.
Yeah, CVA Titan. Yeah, looks like the Shadow Cartel and friends jumped on it, and one NC Titan got on the kill mill as well. So just probably somebody not paying attention, or somebody made a mistake with their Titan, pretty much on that. And then today it looks like Shadow Cartel took out a Freeport Network Fortizar and Karu, which is in Sinclair. And if you want to pull up the battle report there, a lot of stuff was in it still. So it looked like this, it had to go to low power. So it was and run out of fuel. So I'm not sure who let their Fortizar go, but somebody definitely let a Fortizar go. It could have been a bait for it. I'm not sure on that, but Shadow Cartel took it out and got a nice little BR there. Lots of stuff dropped, lots of ships. So
that's Karoo in Sinclair Zone, which is right next to Igniton. That's a place where you have some territory, right, Vily? Yeah.
It is indeed. Karoo's a great system. Encourage everybody to go visit.
How's business in the Keepstar that you have in that that low sec system?
The Tranquility Rebel complex is doing great. We continue to see lots of reactions going on. Capital production is pretty consistent, although we're always looking for more builders. We're definitely seeing an uptick in the number of supers being sold there, which is good. It's a nice little spot. Obviously, there's a few pirates in the area, but that shouldn't be a problem for any expert entrepreneurs looking to make a buck in the joys of low sec.
Right. All right. So that's the battle news that we have today. We're going to just show you a little bit of sightseeing here as well from EVE Online. Thought these were pretty interesting. This is from Ron Pico on Twitter here. It says, love all these small things to discover in EVE. I stumbled upon this asteroid mining outpost earlier this day, for example. You can find it in the EMA system in Corazor, a few kilometers off the gate to Lip Arer. And what's interesting to me about this is this has a gaseous area around this mining colony, and I think they've used this model before for that event where there was some kind of virus that had escaped a mining colony, and it was the occasion for which they role played. What do you call it? A fan fest, which was kind of neat. Another thing is Manic Velocity took a couple pictures the other day here. He says, doing some sightseeing in Horde space and experimenting with NVIDIA and Cell. These shots are taken directly from in-game, no Photoshop needed, and they are astounding. We'll put that first one up for a second, and then we'll give you a detail of it. And this is just awe-inspiring. And if you could see this in game looking like that, I can imagine. Look at that detail and that fog that gives it scale and dimensions. Beautiful. So that's NVIDIA Incel. I don't know what that is, but some pictures. I haven't seen anything like that. It's beautiful. Okay, our last little story today is PC Gamer likes Eve Echoes. They went ahead and tweeted today that it's a lot smaller, but EVE Online's mobile spinoff is so good, I almost prefer it. So that's from PC Gamer talking about Eve Echoes. Belt, do you have anything else, Mannix?
Not tonight.
Okay. Gregorian?
And not, I don't really have anything big tonight.
Okay. And Vily, thanks for joining us, jumping in here. Do you have anything else you want to talk about over the last few minutes?
Not particularly. I'm trying to be, you know, I'm trying to work on my public image a little bit, trying to be a little calmer, a little more quiet, trying to, you know, stay more reserved lately. So
yeah,
I figured I'd come in, say hi. I heard you talking shit about me, so you know, I wanted to, you know, just set the record straight where I could.
We try to do both sides here, so yeah, that's why people come to Talking in Stations, not to hear an unbiased side, but to hear all sides, and we invite all sides to meet at our stations.
That's quite all right. I'm more than happy to do so. It's just one of those things where I'm always willing to chat, you know. So
yeah, I got to say, as far as it goes, you come here, you talk to us, you give us information. We assume it's not BS. When you spin, we don't hear it as spin. Maybe that's our fault. When you're on other shows, that's on other shows. But when you're here, you give us the straight stuff. That's how we see it. And we invite the Imperium to do the same. If they want that access, they have it. As I was saying today, our Minister of Culture is Imperium. Our Minister of Moderation is Imperium. Our mod in here right now is Imperium. So it's totally open for anybody to come in, and we like more voices, not less. So that's how we work. There is no unbiased group anywhere, but the more voices, the more you get all sides, which is what we like. Okay, thanks everyone. Go ahead.
It's always a matter of perspective, right? You know, it's funny. You can look at the color red from one angle and it can be purple, and you can look at the color red from another angle, it could be pink. The shade, you know, the color, the way light, you know, is the angle you look at something can often determine what color something is. And it's important to remember that both sides can be correct at the same time. So, and if you ever think I'm trying to spin on something, I'm more than happy to talk about it. So always appreciate your patience. And I know there's many viewers out there that kind of think I'm full of shit at times, but if they ever want to chat with me, I'm more than willing to, you know, discuss with them.
Thanks, Vily. Well said. Thanks everyone for showing up today. We will see you tomorrow on Talking in Stations.